Hi, Brian Ray here with what I hope will be another quick tutorial on some keying techniques. This was requested by a viewer a couple weeks ago, and I just haven't gotten around to doing anything with it yet, but here we go. Alright, so the question was to talk about some more advanced keying techniques rather than just using a single delta keyer. Specifically, wanted to know about getting a core mat, and I presume also a garbage mat. And so I'm going to show some of those, and also a little bit about how to pre-treat your green screen so that you can get better results from a single keyer. And then we'll look at doing combining multiple keyers into a single good mat. Okay, so here's another plate from Tears of Steel, the free Blender project, open source Blender project. And this has a couple of things in it that I want to point out as just kind of bad practice. So first of all, you can see this panel here, how this is all pink. This is because they are spraying some magenta light onto the foreground in an attempt to counteract the green spill from the green screen. Well, yes, putting the complementary color onto your actor will tend to get rid of the spill. It just creates other problems because now you can see we've got this magenta on his shoulder and his face is a little bit too pinkish, and it just causes problems. The despiller is good enough, and we're never going to be able to get all this magenta out of the panel. The other thing going on here is these magenta tracking markers. Now, yes, they're high contrast with the screen, makes them easy to grab and track with, but it also makes it impossible to key them out. It's good enough that the markers are just a different intensity, a different luminance than the screen. So, make them slightly brighter, slightly darker, but don't make them a different color, because that just makes it really hard. If this hair was coming over and covering some of those markers, it's just difficult. But let's go ahead and get into the thing. So first I'm going to grab my background color, and now I can see immediately I've got some noise problems. Fusion's built-in remove noise is not great. Get yourself a plugin like Neat Video, or do this in Resolve. I understand it's got a good OFX noise reducer. But in any case, let's just go ahead and I'm going to get my core mat first. So I'm just going to really crunch in my black. I'm just going to pull it down pretty far and then crunch in my white. I don't need detail in this. I just want to make sure that my foreground is totally white. And then I'm going to add an erode dilate. Make sure it's acting on the alpha. And I'm going to erode this. Matter of fact, I'm going to erode it to the point where those markers in the background go away. And so this, really quick, this is your core mat. If I come back over here and I do just like a color corrector and I use this as my mask, and I'm just going to gain it down so I can verify that I'm not falling outside of my desired edges anywhere. As you can see, I'm totally inside his body at all points, and I've got nothing in the background. And we can do the opposite. If we take another delta, and again, sample the color, and this time favor, actually, yeah, and then erode dilate, and I'm just going to dilate this a lot. See if I can get rid of those. Whoa. I'm not going to get rid of those guys. So in this case, because of those markers, this may not be the best technique. I'm just going to go ahead and do a quick garbage mask with a polygon. And this is garbage. It doesn't need to be... So let's just go ahead and enclose the dude. Make sure he stays in it the entire time. I'm not going to worry about softness or anything of that sort. I just want to make sure that I'm getting rid of all of these Oh, we got some of this guy's shoulder coming in over here, so let's go ahead and expand it to catch that. So this way I don't have to even worry about those markers. I should make a separate shape for this thing, whatever it is. This control panel thing. Alright, so then we've got our garbage mat, and now we're going to make another delta. And you can use the clean plate approach here also. I'm not going to bother with it. I'm going to plug this into my garbage mat. And I'm going to plug this into my core mat, solid mat. Sample my foreground color. And then I can see immediately that I need to invert my garbage mat. There we go. And now I can play with my thresholds. Actually, I want to first, see, we can see that immediately we've got a big difference between down here where our mat's pretty close to perfect and up here where it's pretty bad. So what we can do is we can pre-treat this image. Let's make it a brightness contrast. And the problem with this is that our screen is not totally even. You can see it's darker up here at the top than it is down here. We've got nice bright light down there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a background node and use this as a ramp. Make it a gradient. And I'm going to stick one end where it's bright and the other end up here where it's dark. And I'm just going to use this as a mask. So down here our alpha is 0 and up here our alpha is 1. I'm going to plug that in as a mask on the brightness contrast. And now while looking at this delta key here, if I gain this up, see what that does? It's going to toggle it. And all I've done is I've adjusted the relative brightness of the top of the image versus the bottom of the image. So you can see down in the lower left it remains constant, and in the upper right it gets brighter. And we're not going to use this for our colors because we want to preserve the lighting that the cinematographer did, but it's great as a way of getting our matte working better immediately. So now we've gone and killed a lot of those pixels up there, meaning we can do a lot less work with the threshold. To get a good alpha. Now, of course, we've got a lot of noise still here. I would really want to denoise this plate. When doing this, you would get much better results. And I can see I got a little bit of problem here with my garbage mat. Of course, you'd want to do this, you know, properly instead of the hurried way I'm doing it. I'm probably actually spending more time fixing it than I would have doing it right to start with. Better to go into modify only mode when you're doing these tweaks so you don't just keep adding more spline points. Anyway, so now we've got this. What we need to do is we need to counteract this magenta that they've put on there. So I'm going to put in a hue curves. I'm going to pull off my original footage here, and I just want to take that magenta and pull its saturation down. This will work better probably if I can sample that color. Yeah, it's over there. And this is easier to do in the spline view. So if I look at saturation, and here's that point I added. It's kind of, whoa. You can see we appear to be losing detail there, but in fact it's still there. At least it should be. If I normalize this, you can see it's still there. And if I toggle this, you can see how much of that pink we're pulling out of it. And I would bet you that if we look at the waveform graph on this, if I look at waveform, can I separate this by color? No, it's not clipping in red, except maybe a couple pixels. That surprises me. I would have expected to see that clipping up there. Let's see if we're doing anything in... Yeah, there we go. RGB. See how huge red is compared to the green. But now if I toggle this, oh wow, red goes way up and green goes way down. Oh right, this is with it turned off. So that's our original range. The red is like way high. And then I turn it on and I pull green up and red down a bit, just to kind of balance it out. Alright, so now I've got a corrected version of my foreground, and I want to apply my alpha to that. So I'm going to plug that into a matte control, say combine alpha, and then post multiply image, and I've got my foreground. And you can see, even though they put all that magenta on there, we still got the green that we have to worry about in the fringe. So we still have to despill. And as a result, we risk throwing more magenta into the skin. Now fortunately the matte controls spill suppressor is pretty good in well done mode at not doing that. I think that looks pretty good. So then if I put this over a checkerboard, let me see, we got a decent edge in there. And it's good all the way around. So this is actually fairly good results from just a single keyer. I might do the additive keying thing to just get a little bit more hair detail back in if this wasn't so out of focus. As it is, I don't think it would be necessary. We still could play with the edges here. Alright, so let's grab another delta keyer. Actually, I'm just going to copy and paste this one, since it starts from a pretty good place. And I'll go ahead and plug my garbage and core mats into it. Just kind of see what I can do about the shoulder. Let's combine that I'm going to use a channel booleans here. I'm just going to put a mask, and I want to cut it at his face here. So I'm just going to get all of this. Use the shoulder. Give it a nice soft edge. And put that into the effect mask. And so now I've got this matte and that matte. And I'm just going to replace this portion. And we'll see how that looks. Thickens up the shoulder. I don't know. I think that might have been a bad decision because now we've got this. Well, no. I think I just want to blur it a little bit more, though. And maybe erode it. To try and get the Terminator line here closer so that we don't have that appearance of a double multiplied edge. Now the trouble is now that I've blurred out this control panel a little bit too much, which was nice and short before, so I'm just going to go ahead and grab my polyline and restrict it to just his shoulder. Go. And of course I'd want to go in and animate this matte, this mask, so that it followed the camera. I'm not going to do that because there's no point. I'm not actually producing this shot. But let's go ahead and grab a background for this that might be what do I think? I have no idea what this is. Sure, why not? We'll replace our checkerboard with this thing, and he's looking at this painting. Alright, so I think this is being pretty successful. I'm still not happy about the noise, and I probably want to come over here and say film grain this. There we go. So just kind of justify seeing the noise in the matte by putting noise on the background. I'd want to, of course, tune this a lot better. It's too big and too strong. And that's really the key is the key to keying is not so much the matte always. I mean, obviously the matte's important. You want to get that as accurate as possible. But sometimes it's the extra little bits that you put in, like making sure that the grain matches between foreground and background, making sure that your optical qualities are the same. Like I did this defocus, and I should probably pull down the bloom level. Because I can see he's pretty out of focus, and then this is in focus. And if we've got that much depth of field between foreground and background, or between foreground and midground, then the background is also going to be out of focus. Depending on how far away it is, it might be more or less. I think probably in this case, I could make it a little bit more, maybe there. Um, and then you want to do something to sandwich these things together. If you had some optical effects to add over the top of this to just make it so it's less of a foreground background thing, and make it sandwich your keyed image between two other things, just to kind of integrate it all a little bit more. You'll get a big benefit from doing that kind of thing. I'm just going to go ahead and clean up my node graph here so it's a little easier to read. And I'm going to once again recommend Digital Compositing for Film and Video by Steve Wright. That was where I learned this green screen correction step, just getting a matte and color correcting the screen that way. All right, so I'm just going to leave this node graph on the screen for a few seconds so you can kind of see that. Take a screenshot if you want to so you can remember what I've done. And hopefully that answers the question. Maybe a couple of other questions, I don't know. I didn't get real elaborate. You could go in and do the additive keying thing that I demonstrated before. But let's keep this a little too long, but not so long that we all want to kill ourselves. See you next time.